What is up, friends? Hope you're having a great day. It's actually kind of a sad day. First of all, our long holiday weekend is over. Man, Thursday, pigged out, hung out with friends and family, watched football. Friday, watched football. Yesterday, we watched football. Tomorrow, back to work. Sucks. Oh well, such is life. Another sad reason the last full weekend of college football. Next week are the championship games. So I only have a handful of games. No more full slate until next September. Kind of sad, but once again, such is life. I think championship, or not championship, but rivalry week held up to its bargain. I mean, there's some great rivalry games, close games, almost upsets almost happened. So yeah, I think it was a great weekend. We'll get to all of that. First, we're going to get to a few news items we got here. Before we start, hit that little subscribe button so you don't miss anything. And here we go. Okay. Apparently, Texas A&M went after Kentucky's Mark Stoops. I've heard two different stories here. Excuse me. I heard he said no, he's going to stay at Kentucky because he's happy. But I've been reading reports that when this news came out, A&M boosters rained down hell on Texas A&M and they rescinded. I don't know who to believe, but this Aggie fan says, because they're talking about Stoops and Dabo Swinney. I'm like, if you do that, you're just going back to what you had. You should have just stayed with Jimbo. I mean, mediocre and so you don't have a big buyout. So we got past Mark Stoops. Hopefully the Dabo Swinney thing dies down. They go after somebody else. I mean, those two. Stoops, he's good where he's at. Kentucky. Dabo's not what he was. So, as an Aggie fan, I sit here and wait and see what they're going to do. Indiana, they fired their head coach, Tom Allen. He's owed $20.8 million in his buyout. Under him, which was, I think he was there 6-7 seasons, they had their moments. I mean, there were a couple times they played big teams. I remember Ohio State a few years back on a Friday night, almost beat them. They had their moments. They just couldn't get to the hump to get over the hump. Defense always played good. The offense needed some catching up, which it never could do. So kind of not really surprised by this. Kind of knew this was going to happen. But anyway, Tom Allen looking for a job. Indiana's looking for a coach. Hey, you big on technology? You big on computers? Because the Mountain West says computers are going to pick the two teams for their championship game. Ryan Day says Ohio State is devastated after the third loss in a row to Michigan. I can imagine. Kind of remember John Cooper? Didn't he always had a great season, but he could never beat Michigan. I think he beat Michigan once or twice, but never could beat Michigan. Ohio State eventually got tired of that, so we'll see what happens in the next few years. Michigan State, they have a new coach. They hired Oregon State head coach Jonathan Smith. I like that hire. He's a good coach. He's won almost 10 games the last two seasons. I know they lost to Oregon, but still, that's a good hire for them. There are reports that Mississippi State is looking at Oklahoma. Offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby is their possible new head coach. Nothing confirmed yet, but that's just what they're saying. Mississippi State is looking for that. All right, so let's go over some of these scores of these games. Go back to Thanksgiving night when we were all stuffed and enjoying the first day of our long weekend. Egg Bowl. Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 17-7. Kind of a lame game. I mean, it really was. 3-0 at halftime. So, Rebels, they outscored the Bulldogs 14-7 in the second half to win. Jackson Dart 96 passing yards and a touchdown. Judkins 119 rushing yards and a touchdown. Princeton had a TD catch. Safety DeJohn Anthony 15 tackles, 6 solo. Will Rogers not too bad for a night. 207 passing yards, no passing touchdowns, but he did run for a touchdown. Mississippi State only one conference win this year. Man, that's bad. We just talked about Oregon State. He's leaving for Michigan State. Well, they lost to Oregon on Friday, 31-7. Bo Nix, 367 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. Franklin, 128 receiving yards and a touchdown. DJ for the Beavers, 220 passing yards and a touchdown pass to Bolden. Oregon wins the Civil War. Texas beat Texas Tech 57-7. Ewers, 196 passing yards, touchdown through an interception. Arch Manning got in the game and played. He was 2 for 5, 30 yards. As bad as they were beating Texas Tech, makes you wonder if they just threw him in there to say, hey, see, you're going to play, don't transfer. Because if I was him, I'd be out of there. I mean, I really would. Been sitting on the bench for, 2 years now? Anyway, Jordan Blue, 121 rushing yards and a touchdown. Jeff Bush had a 43-yard pick 6. Killian Robinson, 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. The great kicker, Auburn, 21 points in this game. Wow. Mizzou, still on the roll. Beat Arkansas 48-14. Cook, 112 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. Cody Schrader, man, this guy, he's incredible. 217 rushing yards and a touchdown. Norfleet had 2 touchdown catches. Tiger defense had 5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. They forced 5 turnovers in that game. Tristan Newsome, their linebacker, 15 tackles, 6 solo, 2 tackles for loss. He had a hell of a game. Chuck Hicks, he had 6 tackles, 3 solo, and 3 sacks. So he had a hell of a game too. Mavis, the kicker, the one who won a couple games for him, one of the major ones, Kansas State. 12 points in this game. Good for him. KJ Jefferson, man, I just feel like Arkansas has wasted his talent. He left the first quarter with an injury. Criswell came in, 96 passing yards and a touchdown. KJ Jefferson and Will Rogers at State, I just feel like those teams wasted their talent. Those guys could have probably done so much better at some other school, but it is what it is. Penn State beat Michigan State 42-0. I was looking forward to this game back in the summertime. When it finally came around to it, I was like, why? Why bother? Michigan State's garbage. Penn State's going to whoop up on them, so I'll watch something else. So, anyway, Aller, 292 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Allen, 118 rushing yards and a touchdown. Penn State defense, 7 sacks and an interception. They held Michigan State to 88 passing yards, 35 rushing yards. And so, yeah, Michigan State needs a new coach. Oklahoma beat TCU 69-45. Dillon Gabriel, 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Also ran for a touchdown. He did throw a pick, but Gavin Schwach, 130 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. This one, hell of a game for him. Stoops, 125 receiving yards and a touchdown. Good for him. Stutzman and Dolby, defense, both had 8 tackles, 5 solo. Bowman Jr. had a 45-yard pick 6 for the Sooners. And Schmidt, the kicker, he was responsible for 15 points in that one. TCU's Hoover, though. Decent game. 344 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. He threw a pick. Bailey, 150 rushing yards and a touchdown. Wiley had 2 TD catches. Shad Brooks Jr., though, 11 tackles, 6 solo tackles, and a sack. So, yeah, nice game for him. TCU, 5-7 this year. After what they did last year, 5-7 this year. Iowa beat Nebraska 13-10. Kind of a slow game, but I still enjoyed it. Great defense on both sides of the ball. Iowa's Hill, 94 passing yards and interception. But he did run for a TD. So Stevens and Meter, both kicked for Iowa. 7 points total. Defense, 3 turnovers, 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Purdy for Nebraska, 189 passing yards, touchdown, interception. Nebraska only 75 rushing yards in this game. And Cornhuskers Lloyd, yeah, TD catch. Tulane and UTSA. This game started off really good, but then UTSA just kind of fell apart. Anyway, Tulane beat them 29-16. Pratt, 125 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Hughes, 166 rushing yards and a touchdown. Brazel, 93 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Frank Harris for UTSA, 198 passing yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions. Griffin had a rushing touchdown. Cardenas had a touchdown catch for the Roadrunners. Tulane's defense, 5 turnovers. They caused 5 turnovers in this game. 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Like I said, pretty good game until about halftime, maybe a little bit into the third quarter, and then Tulane just started taking over. Miami beat Boston College 45-20. Boston College, though, still a good team. They're going to go bowling. Miami actually led 28-7 at the half. Van Dyke, 290 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Paris Jr., 111 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns in that one. Memphis beat Temple 45-21. Memphis' Hennigan, 253 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Damn. Toledo, they go 11-1 on the season, beat Central Michigan 32-17. Toledo's Boone, 186 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Toledo, their only loss this season was their first game against Illinois, and they lost by 2 points. And seeing what Illinois is now, man, one of Toledo's kicking themselves in the butt right now, saying, man, we could have had them, lost by 2 points. But, oh well. Ohio, they go 9-3. They beat Akron 25-14. Akron actually led 14-3 at halftime. Utah State, they became bowl eligible. They beat New Mexico 44-41 in 2 overtimes. After starting off 8-0, looking good, Air Force dropped its 4th game in a row on Friday. Lost to Boise State 27-19. Ashton Gentry for Boise State, 107 rushing yards, touchdown. Also 118 receiving yards in the touchdown. Great game for him. Moving on to Saturday. These are in no particular order. Georgia beat Georgia Tech 31-23. Tech made it rough, though. Made it rough on them. 21-13 at halftime. Georgia's Kendall Milton, 156 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Georgia Tech's kicker, Adian Burr, kept them in the game with 11 points. Haynes King, no touchdown passes for Georgia Tech, but he did run for 2. Georgia gets out of there with a win. The game everybody talks about, Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan wins 30-24. Close game all the way. Classic Michigan-Ohio State battle. Great game. McCarthy, 148 passing yards and a touchdown. Blake Corum, 88 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Turner, their kicker, he was responsible for 12 points. Michigan defense linebacker Junior Colson, 11 tackles, 7 solo. Will Johnson and Rod Moore each had an interception. Ohio State's McLeod, 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Henderson, 60 rushing yards and a touchdown. Harrison Jr., 118 receiving yards and a touchdown. Their defense was great too. Linebacker Steel Chambers, 13 tackles, 5 solo. Makes you wonder after this game how far will the Buckeyes drop in the CFP ratings when they come out Tuesday. That's hard to say. It really is. Washington struggled with Washington State. Ohio State barely lost. I wouldn't think they would drop. I mean, even Georgia had issues with Georgia Tech. I think the only thing that will happen is maybe, this is my prediction, Ohio State will drop to 4 and Michigan and Washington will move up. That's what I see happening. But then again, you never know what those guys are going to do. You don't know how much Jim Beam they drink before they meet every week. I mean, who knows? Speaking of Washington, they beat Washington State 24-21. Took a last-second field goal to do it. Another great game. Great defenses. Man, they just wouldn't let those offenses do very much. Penix Jr., 204 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Johnson, 82 rushing yards and a touchdown. Odunze, that guy's incredible. 120 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Husky defense, 5 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. Linebacker Carson Bruner, 14 tackles, 9 solo in this game. Ward, for Washington State, he had a good game. 317 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, did throw 2 picks. Only 64 yards in the running game for Washington State. Kelly, 106 receiving yards and a touchdown. Victor and Williams both had over 80 yards receiving and a TD catch for the Cougars. Defense side, their defense side of the ball, Ron Stone, 9 tackles, 5 solo. Thornton and Lockett each had 5 solo tackles. Another great classic Apple Cup. Florida State, man, they are just a different team, aren't they, without Travis? Still, beat Florida by 9 points, 24-15. Florida actually led 12-7 at halftime, but were outscored 17-3 in the second half by the Seminoles. Rodemaker, he played quarterback for FSU, 134 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. Benson, 95 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Defense, Seminoles defense, 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 1 interception. They really stepped up. Florida, only 86 passing yards. That's incredible, isn't it? Think of all the years, all the great quarterbacks Florida has had. And, man, only 86 passing yards. That's nuts. Johnson Jr., 107 rushing yards and a touchdown. Kicker Smack, responsible for 7 points. Florida State just seems like a totally different team without Travis. Auburn, what the hell happened the last minute of that game? What was your malfunction? Muffed the punt, gave up a big 4th down. And another 4th down, Alabama throws a winning touchdown pass. What the hell happened? Oh, boy. Bama wins 27-24. Milroe, 259 passing yards, touchdown. 2 touchdowns, I'm sorry. He threw 2 touchdown passes. Ran for 107. Burton, 107 receiving yards and a touchdown. Bond had the winning TD catch with 30 seconds left. Their defense, 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 3 turnovers. Arnold, 2 interceptions. They held Auburn to 93 passing yards, 244 rushing yards, so the rushing game was decent. Alston and Johnson, they had rushing touchdowns for Auburn. But yeah, you had it. Last minute, I don't know what the hell you did, but don't do it again. Kentucky takes down 1-loss Louisville, 38-31. Larry, 206 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, interception. Davis, 76 receiving yards and a touchdown. Davis, 51 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Brown, 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. That's pretty sweet when that happens. Rayner, their kicker, he was responsible for 8 points. Linebacker Jackson, 11 tackles, 7 solo tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Weaver, 8 tackles, 8 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Went all back for Louisville. Plummer, 242 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, threw an interception. Jordan ran for 2 touchdowns. LSU beat Texas A&M 42-30. A&M actually gave them a game for 2.5 quarters. 17-14 at halftime, so. But LSU came out, outscored the Aggies 28-13 in the second half. Daniels put up good numbers, but not like the Daniel numbers we've been seeing the last few weeks. 235 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, ran for 120 yards. Neighbors, 122 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Thomas and Lacey, they had touchdown catches each. Diggs and Williams, they ran for touchdowns for the Tigers. Tiger defense, 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 1 interception. Harold Perkins Jr., 9 tackles, 6 solo in this game. I was really impressed with the Aggie quarterback, Henderson. 294 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception. But the guy can run. I mean, he's no Jaden Daniels or Johnny Manziel when he takes off, but he can run. He can get out of situations. Pretty impressed with him. I honestly, like I said before, I gave up on Jimbo. I haven't watched an Aggie game probably since October. First one I've watched. And, Henderson. Really impressed with Henderson. Why does this look all crooked? I don't know. Just looks crooked. No. So anyway, A&M, you get the right coach, man. Henderson's a damn good quarterback. Arizona, no problem. Arizona State, 59-23. This is a 38-7 game at halftime. Fifita, that's a badass name, isn't it? 527 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. McMillan, 266 receiving yards and a touchdown. Coing, 157 receiving yards and a touchdown. McLachlan, 60 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Wiley rushed for 2 touchdowns, and he caught a touchdown pass for Arizona. Defense, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 turnovers. 9-3. That's what they ended their season. Think about what they've been the last few years. They've been horrible. And, man, they've done a hell of a turnaround. 9-3. So is Cal. We'll get to Cal here in a minute. Notre Dame beat Stanford 56-23. Sam Hartman, 140 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Audric Estime, 238 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns in that one. Woo! 381 total yards, rushing yards. That's it, just rushing yards. 381 for Notre Dame. Pretty impressive. Their defense, 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Iowa State goes to Kansas State, beats them in the snow, 42-35. Iowa State's Beck, 230 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Sama, 276 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Noel, 160 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Their defensive back, Frailer, 15 tackles, 13 solo. Their other defensive back, Surgis, 11 tackles, 11 solo. Howard for Kansas State, 280 passing yards, touchdown, interception. He also ran for a touchdown. Giddens, 114 rushing yards and a touchdown. Sinnott, 136 rushing yards or receiving yards and a touchdown. I didn't watch this game because I know Iowa State just hadn't been good. But this game, every year it's always good. Now, I knew I should have watched it, but I didn't. I was watching the Florida game. Once again, it proves what a great game it is. Took 2 overtimes for Oklahoma State to beat BYU 40-34. Ollie Gordon for Cowboys, 166 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. I haven't heard any mention of this guy for Heisman. Hale, their kicker, 8 points. BYU's Retzloff, 161 passing yards, ran for 2 touchdowns. Hickard had a pick 6. BYU was giving them a game, beating them, and after what BYU had won, my first tweet was going to be Oklahoma State is it time to move on from Mike Gundy yet? But hey, they pulled it out, so crazy. Tennessee beat Vanderbilt 48-24. Milton, 383 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, also ran for 2 touchdowns. Keaton, 122 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Their kicker, Campbell, 12 points. North Carolina State beat North Carolina 39-20. Brendan Armstrong for the Wolfpack, 334 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. 2 of them to Concepcion, who had 131 receiving yards. Their linebacker, Peyton Williams, 15 tackles, 8 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Pretty impressive. Narveson, their kicker, 15 points in this game. Drake May, 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Did run for 106 yards and a touchdown, so it wasn't all bad. But North Carolina, man, since that Virginia game, just not the same team. Clemson beat South Carolina 16-7. Whites, the kicker, scored 10 of those points. So Liberty, they finished undefeated 12-0. They beat UTEP 42-28. Cooley for Liberty, rushed for 83 yards and 3 touchdowns. Purdue beat Indiana 35-31. Indiana fires their coach later. Hudson Card for Purdue, 275 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Ran for 85 yards and a touchdown. Good game for him. Their kicker, Free Chill, 11 points. Indiana Sorsby, 226 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw 3 picks. Lucas, 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown for Indiana. So, not all bad there. Sam Houston, they won their 3rd game of the year, beat Middle Tennessee 23-20. UConn beat UMass 31-18. UConn's Ben Wahad, 45-yard pick 6 in that one. Duke beat Pitt 30-19. Duke's Grayson Laftis, 248 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Central Florida beat Houston 27-13. Houston finishes at 4-8. SMU, they're 10-2 now. They beat Navy 49-14. Stone for SMU, 322 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 thrown to Dixon, who had 125 receiving yards. Tyler Levine, 3 rushing touchdowns. Rogers, their kicker, he was responsible for 11 points. Their defense had 4 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. See if I can. I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I know I am. Wakabia, 74-yard pick 6 for SMU. SMU Tulane in the AAC Conference Championship game next weekend. Probably going to be a damn good game. All right, Troy, they're 10-2. They beat Southern Miss 35-17. Northern Illinois beat Kent State 37-27. Kent State finishes 1-11. You know they're happy this season's over. Miami of Ohio, they moved to 10-2, beat Ball State 17-15. Rice, they're bowl eligible. They came from behind, beat Florida Atlantic 24-21. Quarterback for Rice, Padgett, 255 passing yards, 3 touchdowns in that game. Syracuse, they're bowl eligible. Fired Dino Babers. Now they're bowl eligible. Beat Wake Forest 35-31. The quarterback Schrader, 3 touchdown passes. North Texas beat UAB 45-42. Tulsa beat East Carolina 29-27. Old Dominion beat Georgia State 25-24. Western Kentucky, they're 7-5. They beat Florida International 42-28. Quarterback Austin Reed, 280 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Utah beat Colorado 23-17. Colorado finishes 4-8. Remember that first week they beat TCU and everybody granted them the brand new college football kings. They're 4-8. Finished 4-8. Louisiana beat cross-state rival Louisiana Monroe 52-21. San Jose State beat UNLV. UNLV having a great season, 37-31. UNLV fell to 9-3, but man, still a hell of a season for them. Northwestern, man, they finished 7-5. They beat Illinois 45-43. Like I said before, who would have thought after all that crap that happened last summer that they would be 7-5 going to a bowl game? Wisconsin, they made it to 7-5. They beat Minnesota 28-14. Minnesota fell to 5-7. Not the year PJ Fleck was hoping for. 7-5 Maryland beat Rutgers 6-6. Remember, Rutgers started off very, very good, and they kind of fell off. Maryland beats them 42-24. Maryland's Tallulah, 361 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. Virginia Tech back to a bowl game. They beat Virginia 55-17. Appalachian State beat Georgia Southern 55-27. James Madison beat Coastal Carolina 56-14. James Madison finishes 11-1. That one loss has got to be killing them now. Marshall beat Arkansas State 35-21. Going through the last ones here. Congratulations, New Mexico State. Man, you went to a bowl game last year. You're going to another one this year. You're going to your conference championship game. Beat Jacksonville State 20-17. Finished the regular season 10-3. Nice season for them. Jerry Kill, their coach. Remember Jerry Kill? He was at Minnesota for a while, but he had to stop because of health problems. Man, he's done a hell of a job there at New Mexico State. West Virginia finishes 8-4. They beat Baylor 3-9. Baylor. Dave Aranda, he's been calling a couple press conferences, and it's all talk to him about his future at Baylor. They've just sunk so far. It's just crazy. Texas State finished 7-5, beat South Alabama 52-44. Kansas beat Cincinnati 49-16. Bean, 250 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns for Kansas. Neal, 106 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Kansas finishes the regular season 8-4. A couple of those games they shouldn't have lost, but it is what it is. South Florida, they're 6-6. Beat Charlotte 48-14. South Florida quarterback Brown, 253 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. Wyoming's 8-4. They beat Nevada 42-6. Peasley, the quarterback, 2 touchdown passes, also ran for 2 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Cal, they did a turnaround too. They are 6-6, beat UCLA 33-7. Mendoza for Cal, 178 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Both of them were to Jemiah Hunter, who had 101 receiving yards. Jaden Ott, 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. That's like the third or uh, fourth one this weekend, 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Cal defense, 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 4 turnovers. Great turnaround for Cal. What does this mean for Chip Kelly at UCLA? Are they going to get rid of him? Maybe they have already. We just haven't heard about it yet. Because it has not gone the way Chip Kelly would hope at UCLA. Fresno State, remember them? They started off on fire. Well, they got beat by San Diego State. 33-18. Fresno State, still a great season. I mean, they fell to 8-4. Like I said, started off great, kind of faded. I think it's that Wyoming game. They went up there to Laramie and Wyoming beat them. They kind of fell off right about there. Hawaii, they won. They beat Colorado 27-24. Hardly any of us got to see it. Shager, their quarterback, 320 passing yards and a touchdown. Their kicker, Shipley, 9 points. All right, so besides that, FCS, they started their first round. Sacramento State beat North Dakota 42-35. Sacramento State's Bennett, 207 passing yards, touchdown. 126 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Woo. Richmond beat North Carolina Central 49-27. Richmond's Wickersham, 291 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Youngstown State beat Duquesne 40-7. Youngstown State's Davidson, 316 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Delaware beat Lafayette 36-34. See if I can say his name. Delaware's Minucci? I think that's it. 198 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Mercer beat Gardner-Webb 17-7. Southern Illinois beat Nichols 35-0. Chattanooga beat Austin Peay 24-21. North Dakota State beat Drake 66-3. The Bison's Miller, 206 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Peyton, 104 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. That is it for the final full slate Saturday or weekend in college football. Kind of a sad day. Championship weekend, next weekend. Later in the week, we'll preview those games. Meantime, I guess we all got to get ready, go back to crappy work, but what are you going to do? Hey, stay busy, and that'll go by fast. The weekend will be here again. We will see you next time.